But you know what, forget about the Monophysites for a second, because the Arians were still around, those being the hordes of barbarians Arius' followers preached to, who, attracted to satanic heresy, converted en masse. Out of all of these heretic barbarians, Zeno had to deal with two Goths, two Ostrogoths, a treacherous mercenary, Theodoric, and the Ostrogothic king, Theodoric. After failing to trick Theodoric into fighting Theodoric, Theodoric eventually marched on Constantinople, looked at the walls, ransacked his way away, then he fell from his horse into a spear and died. With Theodoric's death, Theodoric's men joined Theodoric's horde, who would henceforth be known as Theodoric the Great. All this while Verina, Ariadne's mother, the wife of Zeno, had revolted. Thus retired to the east, was named Magister Militum, and then he revolted, don't ask me why. And who did Zeno send to fight him? Theodoric, who then crushed him. And why did Theodoric agree to this? So he could then revolt next to the capital and attack Constantinople, and fail. As was barbarian tradition, after failing to take Constantinople, the barbarians took the bribes to piss off, and became the West's problem. Odoacer's problem. Theodoric did just that, ransacking his way into Odoacer's Italy, who, lacking the powers he got from his long-gone master, Odoacer convinced him to join forces together in a barbarian alliance to tyrannize Italy. Then Theodoric killed him, and all of his minions. Truly a dark age. Thus was born the Ostrogothic Kingdom of Italy, and before I vomit, let's focus on the Vatican. Decades, he agreed with Justin to end the schism with the East, whereas in the West, barbarians like the Franks had taken over Gaul, and Theodoric inherited Visigothic Spain, with the Vandals still occupying North Africa, with their new king, Hilderic. Surely enough, after the Vandals had sacked Rome, the remaining Theodosian family was brought over. Genseric would outlive the Western Empire for a little, and after Eudoxia was thoroughly raped by his son, he produced Hilderic, the half-Roman, half-Vandal. As Stilicho, he was not. But he was still half Roman, being somewhat able to see the light, welcoming true Christian missionaries into Africa, something his heretic barbarian kinsman detested. As for Theodoric, in a scheme to subvert the East before he died off-screen, he sent his son-in-law to be adopted as a son by Justin. But that didn't happen. Instead, Justin adopted him as a barbarian, aka not an heir. For Justin already had an heir, his now greatly educated nephew, who he had adopted as his son. Back to Theodoric, as his schemes failed, death neared, and Justin outlawed his Arian heresy, Theodoric behaved like, well, a barbarian. Cruelly persecuting good Catholic Christians through Italy, he came to the Pope one day and ordered him to go east and demand that heresy be made legal again. Justin then eagerly greeted the Pope, celebrated Christmas with him and Easter, and let him return with some minor concessions at hand. And for this, Theodoric threw him in a dungeon, letting the frail Pope abandoned until his death. The Italians had long despised barbarian rule, and now more than ever yearned for the empire to return. They were not alone. Justinian desired it far more. Speaking of Justinian, he by now held such knowledge of the Christian force he could bend the barbarians to his whim, much like Belisarius of the Huns, using said skill to make one of Theodoric's officers, Mundo, now Mundus, serve him by slaughtering Slavs and Bulgars in the Balkans, later recalling him to replace Belisarius in the east. Justinian indeed began converting and subduing many bordering barbarians, Huns, Slavs, those desert tribes in the southeast, even Goths, Theodoric's own daughter and queen of the Ostrogoths, that is, Amalasuntha, over which Justinian held such sway he convinced her to raise her son like a Roman, but none such subservient barbarian quite compared to Hilderic, whom he didn't even have to personally convert and was very much dominant over. So much so, rumor was Hilderic planned to give Africa to Justinian after his death, but being ruled by civilized non-heretics was too much for the Vandals to take. So they usurped and imprisoned Hilderic, now replaced by Gelimer, who refused all of Justinian's demands to restore Hilderic, or even send him to Constantinople. Speaking of Constantinople, but now history focuses on Italy, as is so often used to, with the Goths growing to despise Roman-friendly Amalasuntha, taking her son to be raised a proper bloodthirsty barbarian. So much so, he died a young man. Now rumors were abound that Amalasuntha planned to give Italy to Justinian, and even when she appealed to her cousin Theodohaty for help, he betrayed, killed, and usurped her. This prompted one of the once Romans under Gothic rule, Liberius, to defect back to the empire and inform Justinian what happened. All the emperor had to do was look at Belisarius and he knew what to do. For too long, the Roman Empire had been robbed of its home, of its birthplace. With the same skill it had conquered the world, the horrors of the 5th century would be overturned. And so, Justinian ordered Belisarius to retake Rome for its empire. Spread out his forces to secure the south. But as an Isaurian mercenary wandered about an aqueduct, he found the most curious thing. Dragging Belisarius to see it, it was a waterway that led straight into the city. Belisarius then ordered it widened, and by the next day, the city was taken. But Theodahad by then had been usurped by the new Gothic king, Witigis, who retreated with his forces north. Indeed, in fear of Belisarius, the Goths had left Rome alone, and with a papal invitation into the Eternal City, Belisarius marched there. After decades of barbarian tyranny, Rome was finally back under Roman rule. The only authority in Italy. All this while desperate Witigis tried one of his last tricks, sending envoys to Khosrau, telling him to break the eternal peace now that most of Rome's legions and generals were in Italy. Having almost completely taken the north, Belisarius then cornered Witigis in Ravenna, eager to end the war with total victory. But Justinian had caught wind of Witigis' envoys to Khosrau. Not really. He just knew the barbarians would backstab him sooner or later. So as Belisarius was about to take Ravenna, orders came for him to make a compromise treaty with the Goths. As a not-so-subtle jab at John, he said he would only do it if Justinian himself signed it. Not because of insubordination, but just to buy enough time to show that Ravenna was about to fall. He didn't even have to wait for that, cause Witigis came up with the last of his tricks, proposing Belisarius peace through reviving the Western Roman Empire, with Belisarius as the new Western Roman Emperor, and the Goths as his loyal guardians of Italy, if only he betrayed Justinian. And yeah, Belisarius told Witigis he was all for it. The Goths then opened the gates, let Belisarius in, and he arrested Witigis, freed Amalasuintha's daughter, Matasuintha, took back all the wealth they had stolen from Italy, and proclaimed Ravenna reconquered in the name of Justinian. Witigis would be sent to Constantinople to die in captivity, Matasuintha would be set to marry Germanus, and most important of all, after years of fierce campaign, Italy, the home province where it all began, had been freed from barbarian tyranny. In his bliss, Justinian would ask Belisarius for details, a full report of his exploits in Italy. Belisarius would make a proud smile, and in the honor of Stilicho, Aetius, Majorian, and so many more, let him see the casualties.